All right. Jamel Herring puts his mocking statement into this whole conversation about Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford. And what he says to me is absolutely funny because it's just like a microcosm of what I think the problem is with Terence Crawford. Jamel Herring says, and uses this little meme. You can go to Twitter to see the meme, but the gist of it is that he just came to sit down and watch Top Rank fans and PBC fans tell us how the businesses ran, right? And I thought to myself, man, no businessman would say that. It demonstrated a fundamental lack of a principle of who's involved in the business of boxing. But let's talk about that and the relationship to what Terence Crawford actually said and did in those tweets in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel, subscribers. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. Also, thank you to everybody that supports on the Patreon, everybody that supports in the live streams that we do Monday through Friday and OG Boxing Talk on Sunday. And also, thank you to everybody that's a channel member down there that hit that green button and joined at a specific level. We really appreciate you. Now, that last statement that I made, we really appreciate you, right? See, if I ask you who was watching this video to join, I say thank you. And why do I say thank you? Because I am essentially asking you to participate in a business relationship with me. Is it complicated? No, shouldn't be. But to Jamel Herring, I think that it is a little complicated. Now, let me go through this. Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford have a big conversation going on between them, about them. Between people that want to see Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford fight next, people that want to say, okay, if Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford don't want to fight, can't fight next, who is Terence Crawford going to fight? People essentially, the conversation going on between boxing fans and also the conversation going on between the boxing fans and Terence Crawford. Now, so when Jamel Herring says, listen to us, tell us how the businesses ran, okay? That to me made it sound like Mr. Herring doesn't think that boxing fans are involved in the business of boxing. That is wrong. The business of boxing is essentially this. You have two fighters that want to get paid for fighting. You have a promoter that wants to put on a show that he will display the talents of those two fighters fighting each other. Get a couple other fighters on the undercard as well. So you have a fighter-to-fighter relationship and a fighter-to-promoter relationship. You also have, for the fighter, you have the manager who handles the fighter's personal business, the conversations oftentimes between, the fighter and the promoter, right? You have, but I'm not going to get into the great detail of it, but this is the pretty much the nuts and bolts of it. That promoter then wants to sell tickets to the fan, or they want you to go, or they want a network to televise it and have the network pay them a fee to televise the fight. And then the TV people will ask you to watch them. So if it's ESPN, you'll have a subscription. And ESPN says, hey, fan, will you pay $6 a month for ESPN? or DAZN will say, hey, fan, will you pay $50 or $20 or whatever it'll be next month, $200 for me to show you these fights? And the fan says, yes, I will buy DAZN, or yes, I will buy ESPN Plus, or yes, I will tune in to Fox and watch and allow you to show me ads, and maybe I will or will not buy the products of the people who are paying you money to show me your ads. See how that works? That's essentially the business of boxing. You have other people on the outside of it who could sanction the fight, like say the WBC will validate that this is a quality fight. You'll have the state athletic commissions that will take a fee and say, yes, this is a safe and legal fight. You will have people that manufacture the gloves, people that manufacture the rings, people that sell the popcorn, make the hot dogs. You have people in the venue that will actually process the tickets for the venue. But essentially, it is a relationship between the fighters, all those middlemen, and the fan. But any way you lay that out, Mr. Herring, the fans are part of the business of boxing. So when you're talking to fans, it might be smart not to insult the people who are the only other essential element in the equation. Nobody gives a flying fart if you're fighting or not, if nobody cares if you're fighting. The TV networks don't want to pay you your money. The advertisers don't want to show you anything unless they get a sense that they get a connection to the people who are paying their money. So I just wanted to go through that really quickly because I'm quite sure you can go find anybody else that works in the sport of boxing, and they're not going to tell you that that's not the business of boxing. That's the business of boxing. And essential of it, how it works is if I pay my money, I have a say-so in the product that I'm going to buy or not buy. But what blows my mind is the treatment of fans, one way or the other, by boxers like Terence Crawford when he puts some guy on his Twitter feed and insults large numbers of them at a time. That doesn't seem to be the way that the business of boxing, well, I guess that's how it works with Terence Crawford, but I don't think that there's a lot of Harvard MBAs that would tell you that that's what you should do. Isolate yourself from your fan base. Nah, Mr. Herring, I don't think so. Now, the other reason why I find this, just a little bit funny is that I have on a semi-regular basis talked to boxers, professional boxers, and been asked just on a favor basis to read agreements that have been propositioned to them. And let me tell you, I have yet to run into one where somebody understands thoroughly the agreement that was given to them. And they are boxers, but somehow their lawyer does. Somehow, in the sport of boxing, a promoter, the two most significant promoters in the last 100 years, with the exception of maybe Tex Rickard in the early 1900s, were a lawyer and a numbers runner. Am I wrong? Bob Arum is a lawyer. I don't believe the dude has ever thrown a punch at anybody in his life. And you have Don King, who definitely throws some punches and some stuff at some people, but is a numbers runner. Why is that? Because legal law is a business, and the numbers is a business. And oh, I'm sorry, there's another guy, a concert promoter named Al Heyman, seemed to figure out the sport of boxing a lot quicker than some boxers have, and have guided people who were boxers through the business of boxing to be very successful. And I tell you one thing he has never done. I have never, ever heard him insult a fan. I have never, ever heard Don King insult fans and clown fans, because Don King knows that Don King wants their money. Now, I have heard Bob Arum say that you can throw fans this way or that way, and, say some offhanded things. And I'm quite sure they've all said some offhanded things off the record. But they all have a significant respect for the fan. So I find it funny when I listen to boxers who clearly do not have a sound, and this is no insult to them. I don't mean to be insulting when I say this, because many do, but many don't. But the concept of business, of personal interactions, financial interactions with somebody that has a product or a service, and somebody that desires to obtain that product or service who has money, right? Or some other in-kind service. That is something that does not change fundamentally because you're dealing with the sport of boxing, or you're dealing with the sport, or you're dealing with snooker, or you're dealing with selling cars, or you're selling. It's all within the concept of a transaction. Boxing, when you're talking about the business of boxing, you're talking about the transaction of a boxing event. How the fighters get paid, who are they going to fight, what is the risk reward associated with, what's the risk reward associated for that individual boxer and the one individual boxer and the other individual boxer, how much money do they anticipate, and fan interest do they anticipate being generated. All of those type of things, man, come into the conversation of the business of boxing. But please never forget that it is the fan is essentially involved. We're not sitting out and watch you conduct business. We are an active part of it. You are setting up when a boxer's dealing with another boxer and dealing with a promoter, you guys are only dealing with one half of the transaction. We're the other half of the transaction. The fight is not completed until the fight happens. You're not getting paid until the tickets are sold. You might have gotten an advance, but if you got an advance on the payment and it doesn't come through, then hey man, do you walk out with a loss? Well, sometimes, the zone will say, well, I'll guarantee it. But over time, if the fans do not respond to the zone, eventually they'll cut that money off and they'll take that loss. But that's a reason why I don't really like the DAZN deal for fans of boxing, because the zone, the way that they situated that for the time being, has taken the fan in large part out of our money out of the equation. But it really is, just in the long haul, an attempt to gain the support of the boxing fan by them paying for the fights up front. So even with that, we are still an essential part of that equation. And Mr. Herring, please don't ever make that mistake, nor lecture people about having a conversation about who they actually want to pay their money to see fight. Anyway, you let me know what you think in the comment section, and with that, I'm out. Peace.